very good morning. Welcome to another edition of Breakfast Show, your power pack 60 minutes as you sip your morning tea and coffee. We get you the latest from the field of politics, business, sports and entertainment. This morning, there's a lot to look forward to. The Defence Minister in a bilateral meeting with the Australian Defence Minister. Also, the presidential pick there being announced by the NDA. Lots of other stories in the next 60 minutes. I am Anil Thomas. To take you through this morning is my co-anchor Preeti Balla. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, morning to you too. And we're back with the first comprehensive show we get for you every morning to make sure that yes, your morning begins on the right note and your tea or coffee tastes better. We'll get you everything that's making it to the headlines. It's a packed 60 minutes ahead. Stay with us. First we get to the headlines.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will hold bilateral talks with Australian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defence Richard Marles. In New Delhi today, the two ministers will review the defence cooperation between the two countries and explore new initiatives to further strengthen bilateral engagements.
Bangladesh continues to reel under heavy floods. Continuing rains over the last 3 days worsen the situation in Brahmaputra Basin. Major rivers flowing above the danger mark. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina cautions authorities to remain vigilant for another round of floods in the central and southern parts of the country.
US lawmakers agree landmark bipartisan bill on gun safety. Bill includes provisions that would help states keep guns out of the hands of those deemed to be danger to themselves or others. Legislation will pave the way for US Senate to move to a vote this week.
NDA declares former Jharkhand Governor Droupadi Murmu as nominee for upcoming presidential polls in July. Murmu, who hails from Odisha, if elected, will be the first tribal woman to be President of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweets, Droupadi Murmu has rich administrative experience and had an outstanding gubernatorial tenure.
Flood situation remains unchanged in Assam. Met Department predicts heavy rains for the next few days. Chief Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma says government will soon launch a portal for affected people to register damages caused by flood waters. A flood relief package too will be announced shortly.
Indian women's hockey team defeats USA 4-2 in the first of the two matches against the Americans in the ongoing 2021-22 FIH Pro League tie in Netherlands. Indian team is currently third in the league table with 27 points from 13 matches behind Argentina and the Netherlands.
Well, those were the top stories at the top of this hour. Now for the stories in detail, starting first up with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who will today hold bilateral talks with Australian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defence Richard Marles in New Delhi. During the bilateral talks, the two ministers will review the defence cooperation between the two countries and explore new initiatives to further strengthen bilateral engagements. They will also exchange views on regional and global issues of shared interest. India and Australia share a comprehensive strategic partnership since June 2020, and defence is a key pillar to this partnership. The partnership is based on a shared vision of free, open, inclusive and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. The two democracies have a common interest in peace and prosperity of the entire region, and Richard Marles reached Goa on June 20th on the first leg of his 4-day visit to India.
Droupadi Murmu has been named as a National Democratic Alliance's presidential candidate. In a late-night announcement, the Bharatiya Janata Party Parliamentary Board named Murmu, a tribal BJP leader from Odisha, as the ruling party's candidate for the presidential election. Droupadi Murmu belongs to Odisha and was the 9th governor of Jharkhand. 64-year-old Murmu will be the first person from Odisha and the first tribal woman to occupy the constitutional post if elected. a strong possibility as numbers are stacked in favor of the BJP-led National Democratic Alliance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed confidence that NDA presidential candidate Droupadi Murmu will be a great president of India. Prime Minister said she devoted her life to serving society, empowering poor, downtrodden, marginalized, and she has rich administrative experience and had an outstanding gubernatorial tenure. The Prime Minister added that millions of people, especially those who have experienced poverty and faced hardships, derive great strength from the life of Droupadi Murmu. Prime Minister also said her understanding of policy matters and compassionate nature will greatly benefit the country.
Moving forward, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the 14th BRICS Summit hosted by China on June 23rd and 24th. The summit will be held in a virtual format under the theme of Foster High-Quality BRICS Partnership, usher in a new era for global development. The External Affairs Ministry said BRICS has become a platform for discussing and deliberating on issues of common concern for all developing countries. And during the 14th BRICS Summit, deliberations are expected to be held in areas such as terrorism, trade, health, traditional medicine, environment, science and technology, innovation, agriculture, technical and vocational education, along with training and micro, small and medium enterprises. Discussions are also likely to be held on issues such as reform on the multilateral system, combating COVID-19 pandemic and global economic recovery. BRICS countries have regularly called for reform of the multilateral system in order to make it more representative and inclusive. Prior to the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also deliver a keynote speech virtually in the opening ceremony of the BRICS Business Forum.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will pay a 4-day visit to Rwandan capital Kigali to attend a meeting of the Commonwealth Heads of Government. Dr. S. Jaishankar will be representing Prime Minister Modi at the Commonwealth Summit on 24th and 25th of June. The External Affairs Minister will be leading the Indian delegation. Dr. S. Jaishankar will also attend the Foreign Ministers meeting on June 23rd. The theme of this year's summit is Delivering a Common Future, Connecting, Innovating, Transforming. The leaders of the Commonwealth member states are scheduled to deliberate on the issues of contemporary relevance, including global challenges like climate change, food security, health issues, and are likely to adopt a number of documents, including the Kigali Declaration on Child Care and Protection Reform, Declaration on Sustainable Urbanization, and also Commonwealth Living Lands Charter. During the visit, the minister is expected to hold several bilateral meetings with his counterparts from Commonwealth member states and also other visiting dignitaries.
Well, time now to move on to our next segment where we get you all the latest from the international world of news. We're starting first up with an update on that Ukraine-Russia crisis. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the military situation in the eastern regions of Luhansk was very difficult as Russia stepped up an effort to evict Ukrainian troops from key areas. Russian forces captured several settlements near the embattled cities of Lyansk and Severodonetsk in the Luhansk region, and Russian and Ukrainian forces have been fighting for weeks for control of the Severodonetsk region.
The situation on the front line hasn't significantly changed thanks to tactical maneuvers. The Ukrainian army is strengthening its defense in the Luhansk region. That's really the defensive spot. The occupiers are pressing strongly and also in the Donetsk direction in the Kharkiv region. Cruel and cynical Russian artillery shelling will not give anything to the occupiers, but the Russian army is deaf to any rationality. It just keeps destroying, keeps killing. It seems to show by this to its command that it's not standing still. In the south, we are defending our Mykolaiv region, our Zaporizhia region. The liberation of the Kherson region continues at pace.
Нашу Миколаївщину, наше Запоріжжя, поступово звільняємо Херсонщину.
At least 15 people were reportedly killed by Russian shelling in Kharkiv region. 16 others were also injured by the attack by Russian troops. Russian forces fired on Shugaev, a town 30 kilometers southeast of Kharkiv city. In this attack, 6 people were killed and 4 others were wounded. In another attack, 5 people were reportedly killed and 11 were injured in Kharkiv city. Also, an 8-year-old child died in Russian shelling in the suburbs. In the attack, his mother was also wounded. 3 more people lost their lives in Zolochev town. Intense shelling resumed recently in Ukraine's second largest city.
Well, Ukrainian forces last week claimed their first successful use of the Western-donated Harpoon anti-ship missiles to engage Russian forces. Satellite images showed before and after comparison images of Snake Island between June 1st and June 17th in the aftermath of reported attacks against Russian positions on the island. The Defense Ministry said in its daily update on social media that the target of the attack was almost certainly the Russian naval tug Spastel Vasily Bek, which was delivering weapons and personnel to Snake Island in the northwestern Black Sea. The war has entered a brutal phase in recent weeks, with Russian forces concentrating on Ukrainian-controlled parts of the Donbas region, which Russia claims on behalf of separatists.
Russia warned Lithuania of serious consequences on Tuesday over its restriction of rail traffic to Russia's Kaliningrad enclave. Now, Russia's Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev told Lithuania that Moscow would respond to its ban on the transit of goods sanctioned by the EU to Russia's enclave of Kaliningrad in such a way that citizens of the Baltic state would feel the pain.
Этот пример показывает, что нельзя.
This example shows that you cannot trust either verbal statements by the faced or written ones. Russia will certainly respond to such hostile actions. Appropriate measures are being worked out between departments and will be taken in the near future. Their consequences will have a serious negative impact on the population of Lithuania.
Серьезное негативное влияние на население Литвы.
Well, Russia's threat to punish Lithuania over blocked rail shipments to Moscow's enclave in Kaliningrad jangled nerves on Tuesday for residents living just across the border who put faith in NATO membership to thwart any potential military action. Lithuania has shut the route for transport of steel and other ferrous metals, which it says it is required to do under the EU sanctions that took effect on Saturday, raising the ire of Russian officials who threatened a serious negative impact. Lithuania says it is only following the EU sanctions imposed over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The EU has echoed Lithuania's statement, saying that the country is just implementing sanctions imposed by the EU as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The sanctions list include coal, metals, construction materials and advanced technology. As a member of the NATO military alliance, Lithuania is protected by collective defense treaties.
The European Union's envoy to Moscow has meanwhile urged Russia to refrain from escalatory steps and rhetoric over what Moscow calls an anti-Russian restriction on goods transiting between Kaliningrad and also the rest of Russia. Russia's foreign ministry on Tuesday summoned Markus Ederer over Lithuania's decision to ban transit of goods under EU sanctions to Kaliningrad. Moscow conveyed its decisive protest to Ederer over the unilateral anti-Russian restrictions on cargo transit between Kaliningrad region and also the rest of the Russian Federation. According to a foreign ministry statement, the ministry demanded immediate restoration of normal transit operations, warning of retaliatory measures if the curbs are not lifted. Located on the Baltic Sea, Kaliningrad is sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania and separated overland from the main part of Russia by Lithuania, Latvia and Belarus. Most railway transit between Russia and Kaliningrad is through Belarus and Lithuania.
Well, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz vowed support for Ukraine for as long as needed in a speech to German Industry Association BDIS Industry Day. Scholz said Germany will send weapons to Ukraine for as long as needed. He added since his trip to Kyiv last week, it had become only clearer that Ukraine belongs to Europe. Scholz also underscored that Germany stood resolutely at the side of Lithuania and other Eastern allies.
Nicht nur die Folgen des russischen Angriffskrieges bringen.
Ukraine belongs to us. It belongs to the European family. A milestone on this demanding European path is the status of an accession candidate. The EU member states will be discussing this in the next few days. Germany is in favor of a positive decision for Ukraine, and I'll push for a unified position at the European Council. Secondly, it's very clear that we will continue to support Ukraine, also with the weapons, and we will continue to do so for as long as Ukraine needs our support.
Wichtig ist, dass die externen Schocks zu keiner dauerhaften Inflationsspirale führen.
In fact, the British government also said that it is determined to impose further sanctions on Russia and will continue to do so until Moscow fully withdraws from Ukraine. UK Foreign Minister Liz Truss told Parliament on Tuesday that UK is determined to provide more weapons, impose more sanctions and back Ukraine in pushing Russia out of their territory. Truss said that she would be travelling to Turkey on Wednesday to discuss options to help get grain out of Odessa, saying that there was only a matter of weeks to find a solution before a new harvest had to begin, with storage already filled with grains from last year's harvest.
This is about freedom and democracy in Ukraine, and it's also about freedom and democracy in Europe and across the world. That's why we're determined to provide more weapons, impose more sanctions, and back Ukraine in pushing Russia out of their territory. We will continue to impose sanctions. We will continue to stop importing goods from Russia until we see Russia fully withdraw from Ukraine.
Britain, United States and the European Union have coordinated in imposing massive sanctions on Moscow for what they call an invasion of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has termed it as a military operation. Britain has targeted Russian businessmen, politicians, religious leaders and businesses as part of its wide-ranging sanctions on Moscow.
Well, Ukraine is set to become an official candidate for European Union membership, the first step to joining the 27-country bloc. EU ministers on Tuesday backed granting Ukraine candidate status to join the bloc. EU members are expected to back the move at a summit being held on the 23rd and 24th of June. The bloc's executive arm last week proposed taking the symbolic first step to put Ukraine on the years-long path towards EU membership in a strong sign of support as Kyiv faces Russian military action. It is now down to EU leaders meeting on Thursday in Brussels to sign off on the move, and they are expected to agree to Ukraine and neighboring Moldova joining the list of candidates pushing for membership.
In other updates from war on Ukraine now, a large fire remained uncontrolled at a gas processing factory on Tuesday in the Izium district in eastern Ukraine after it was hit by several Russian missile strikes last week. Kharkiv region governor Oleh Snebov confirmed on June 18th, in fact, that the facility had been targeted by Russian strikes. He also said in a telegram post that some other buildings had also been damaged. The fire was still blazing and a large plume of smoke could be seen from a distance.
Well, Hollywood actor Ben Stiller, goodwill ambassador for the UN Refugee Agency, has said that it was distressing to hear the experiences of people displaced by the Ukraine conflict. Stiller traveled to Poland and Ukraine over the last few days to meet those who had fled their homes since the Russian invasion began. Video released by the UNHCR showed Stiller visiting damaged buildings and a damaged home in Ukraine's Irpin on June 20th and meeting refugees in Poland on June 18th. During his trip, Ben Stiller also visited a UNHCR warehouse. In Ukraine, he traveled to Lvov, Irpin, which was damaged heavily at the start of the conflict, and Kyiv, where he met President Volodymyr Zelensky. Ben Stiller was appointed as the Goodwill Ambassador in 2018 and has previously met refugees in Germany, Jordan, Guatemala and Lebanon.
Up next, we're heading for a short break. You're watching Breakfast News. Stay with us.
The changing world of news. Headlines that you wake up to. News that shapes your day. Stories that matter to you. The latest and most accurate updates. A fresh start to a new day. The Breakfast News, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. on DD India.
Continuing with international updates, a bipartisan group of lawmakers released the first significant gun control legislation in decades on Tuesday, paving the way for the U.S. Senate to move to a vote this week after recent mass shooting incidents in Uvalde, Buffalo and Texas that struck a nerve in the country. In a statement, Democratic Senate leader Chuck Schumer said the bipartisan gun safety legislation is in progress and will save more lives. While it is not everything we want, this legislation is urgently needed. The legislation, which is the first significant federal firearms controls in a generation, aims to take firearms away from dangerous people and provide billions of dollars in new mental health funding. The 80-page bill does not ban assault-style rifles or significantly expand background check requirements for gun purchases, but it gives states more resources to take guns away from dangerous individuals. The legislation would also allow states to provide juvenile records to the National Background Check System for gun purchases. With a 100-seat Senate split evenly, the legislation will need support from at least 10 Republicans to pass a procedural hurdle.
Well, the top official of Texas Department of Public Safety, Stephen McCraw, has slammed the law enforcement response to the Uvalde school massacre that killed 19 children and 2 teachers. He said that the police response to the incident was an abject failure, and the police action after the gunmen entered Robb Elementary School and began shooting have come under close scrutiny, with many parents and relatives expressing deep anger over the response. According to the director, the officers wasted time in waiting for the weaponry and shield backup even after having sufficient body armor. Besides, he also criticized the police officials' unwise decision of waiting for the key that was never needed as the gunmen entered the room without any of it. Adding to his statement, he said that the officers at scene had enough firepower and protective equipment to storm into the classrooms, but instead they waited and chose to place the lives of officers before the lives of children.
U.S. state election officials recounted how supporters of Donald Trump threatened, insulted and harassed them, sometimes turning up at their homes after they refused to help the former president overturn his 2020 election defeat. While testifying on Tuesday at the hearings on Jan 6 assault on the U.S. Capitol, the officials called pressure put on him to change election results a tragic parody. The committee's 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans have used the hearings to build their case that Trump's efforts to overturn his defeat amounted to illegal conduct far beyond normal politics. Trump has denied wrongdoing while repeating the false accusations that he lost only because of widespread fraud that benefited Biden. Trump and his supporters, including many Republican members of Congress, dismissed the Jan 6 panel as a political witch hunt, but the panel's backers say that it is a necessary probe into a violent threat against democracy.
Well, moving to neighbor Sri Lanka, where Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and other officials continue to hold discussions in Colombo with a visiting team of the International Monetary Fund or IMF officials for a possible economic package. The talks would continue until the end of the month. Experts believe that while some recommendations from the IMF may be helpful in easing the nation's difficulties, the Sri Lankan government must be careful in how it interacts with the IMF, as nothing comes for free. They say that IMF assistance usually comes with many conditions, and according to both Sri Lankan and IMF officials, a financial rescue plan is not expected until Colombo agrees with its creditors on restructuring its 51 billion foreign debt, a process that could take months. The country defaulted on the debt in April and went cap in hand to the IMF, which has asked Colombo to raise taxes and restructure loss-making state enterprises. The United Nations last week launched an emergency response effort to feed thousands of pregnant women facing food shortages in Sri Lanka. First corruption, followed by COVID pandemic, and then the Russia-Ukraine conflict. All the issues have added fuel to the Sri Lankan crisis. Meanwhile, as the nation continues to grapple with the onset of food shortages, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has taken several steps to ease the situation. Some of them include closing schools and halting non-essential government services, starting a 2-week shutdown from Monday. The Prime Minister has also set up a committee headed by parliamentarian Nimal Lansa to mitigate the food crisis. Further, Fridays have also been declared a holiday for government employees.
Brazilian police took a suspect in the killing of indigenous expert Bruno Pereira and British journalist Dom Phillips to visit the scene of the murders. Amarildo da Costa Oliveira, a fisherman who police say confessed to the crime, led the police through the events that resulted in murder and disposal of the bodies. The visit took place on Wednesday, June 15th. The suspect said the victims travelled along the Itacol River in a boat. Pereira argued with Jefferson da Silva Lima, who allegedly shot the indigenous expert in the back. Da Costa Oliveira also pointed out the place where the suspects sunk the victim's boat. Police said that according to information provided by the suspect, Pereira and Phillips' bodies were transported by a canoe to the place where they were buried. A forensic team restricted the area to search for new evidence.
Meanwhile, in Miami, a Red Air passenger plane slid off the runway and caught fire while trying to land at the Miami International Airport on Tuesday. 3 people were taken to the hospital. There were 126 people on board. The flight that landed from Dominican Republic tore through a communication tower and a small building before coming to a halt in a grassy area besides the runway. Early indications suggest that the plane's landing gear may have malfunctioned. The plane was carrying 126 passengers and 11 crew members at the time of the crash.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Tuesday acknowledged the terrible wrongs committed against the country's First Nations people as he marked National Indigenous Peoples Day in Ontario. The Prime Minister has made Indigenous reconciliation a priority in his government. Canada's Indigenous peoples suffered from higher levels of poverty and violence and shorter life expectancies. Trudeau also spoke out against the brutal history of Canada's residential school system. For 165 years, ending in 1996, the school system forcibly separated Indigenous children from their families, subjecting them to starvation and physical and sexual abuse. The discovery of over 1,000 unmarked graves at 2 former schools last year reopened the deep wounds left by the European colonization of Canada and the subsequent efforts to assimilate Indigenous cultures.
When you look at the layers of trauma and of damage done by Canada, that Indigenous peoples continue to reach out with open hands and open hearts and say, let's build a better country and a better future together. Which one of us could say that? After generations of being told that you're not good enough, that your culture has no value, to still stand up and say, no, not only does it have value, but we're happy to share this value with you. And yes, there's hurt. And there's intergenerational trauma and huge challenges to overcome.
Well, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman met with Jordan's King Abdullah on Tuesday. The first such visit in years by the Saudi Crown Prince comes at a time when Jordan's economy is struggling with the economic knock-on effects of the Ukraine war. Experts believe that this is an opportunity for the new phase in Jordanian-Saudi ties and to continue a program of economic projects and new investments. Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, the Public Investment Fund, is looking into investing billions of dollars in mega infrastructure projects in Jordan, including an estimated 2.5 billion railway project. King Abdullah will also discuss with the Saudi prince a summit meeting next month in Jeddah, where the US President Joe Biden will meet with leaders of the Gulf Cooperation Council or the GCC, in addition to Iraq, Jordan and Egypt.
At least 100 fishermen and women gathered near the Spanish embassy's entrance and claimed compensation after the Spanish energy firm Repsol's oil spill. In the worst environmental disaster in recent memory, as termed by Peru, over 6,000 barrels of oil leaked into the Pacific Ocean while uploading fuel to Repsol's La Pampilla refinery. Urged by the company's decision to pay only artisanal fishermen, the fishermen who work in Chanque port protested for the promised compensation that Repsol is yet to pay them. Perla Zemodio, a fishmonger, said, in fact, he took part in the demonstration and said that oil company has only recognized traditional fishermen as direct victims of the spill, not the other businesses that rely on fishing industry in the area. In the footage, the protesters could be seen holding banners, banging pots and chanting, "We want solutions," while the police officers guarded the embassy's entrance.
Moving to Turkey now, where a wildfire broke out in the southwestern region on Tuesday, sparking fears of a repeat of last year's blaze that devastated tens of thousands of hectares across the country's Mediterranean and Aegean provinces. The fire had spread quickly due to windy conditions and the cause was still unknown. The firefighters and forestry units continue working to contain the fire. Last summer's blaze were the most intense in Turkey on record, as the Mediterranean has become a new wildfire hotspot. President Tayyip Erdogan's government was criticized as being unprepared for the fires last year. They responded by saying that the fires were the worst in Turkey's history.
A quick update on the weather front. Now, millions of homes are flooded after days of monsoon downpour caused catastrophic flooding in Bangladesh and northeastern region of India. A wide swath of Bangladesh has been impacted by the disaster, forcing mass evacuations. Up to 100,000 people in the hardest hit areas, while millions have been left stranded. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Tuesday inspected the flood situation in Sylhet, Sunamganj, Netrokona and adjacent areas. The Premier witnessed the flood situation for herself as the helicopter carrying her hovered over the affected areas, maintaining the low fly mode. The authorities earlier called out the army troops to cooperate the civil administration in evacuating people or reaching support to marooned people, while Navy and Air Force units subsequently were summoned, particularly in the northeastern Sylhet region, as it now appeared as a sea. The government has allocated 22.5 million takas in cash, 400 metric tons of rice and 41,000 packets of dry and other food material as immediate humanitarian aid to deputy commissioners of flood-hit districts between 15th and 18th of June.
Well, shifting from Bangladesh to India's Assam, where the flood situation in Assam worsened on Tuesday, affecting 55 lakh people across 32 districts. River Brahmaputra and Barak, along with their tributaries, are in spate. Karimganj and Khachar have been severely affected by the rising waters of the Barak and Kushiara. Barpeta is the worst affected district with 12,51,000 people affected, followed by Dhubri and Darang. Assam's Chief Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma, who visited the relief camps in flood-hit Nalbari and Kamrup districts, said that a package will be announced soon.
The Indian Meteorological Department forecast intense rainfall activity from 21st of June to Saturday in Maharashtra's capital city as well as the entire coastal region. The forecast stated that the new wet spell will be driven by a combination of an offshore trough and strong westerly winds along the west coast that will bring in moisture-laden winds over to the region. It added that these factors will lead to widespread rains and also thunderstorms along with heavy to very heavy rainfall in isolated locations across the Konkan belt. This includes the districts of Mumbai, Thane, Raigarh, Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg for the next 5 days. Accordingly, IMD has issued an orange alert over the entire coastal subdivision for this 5-day period. This advisory, which is the second highest level of weather warning, urges the residents to be prepared for rough weather conditions. For Mumbai in particular, the department has predicted heavy to very heavy rains in isolated areas until Saturday, putting them at risk of water logging.
Well, time now to get you all the latest from the world of stock markets and business in our segment BizBuzz. Well, Wall Street's major indexes jumped on Tuesday as investors scooped up shares of mega cap growth and energy companies. All 11 major S&P 500 sectors gained as stocks rebounded broadly after the benchmark index last week logged its biggest weekly percentage decline since March 2020. Investors are trying to assess how far stocks can fall as they weigh risks to the economy, with the Federal Reserve taking aggressive measures to try to tamp down surging inflation. The S&P 500 gained 90 points while the Nasdaq Composite gained 270.9 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 641 points.
Most powerful tool that the Federal Reserve has is its ability to talk to the market. And the talk to the market is very strong right now as the Fed is, and they backed it up with 75 basis point move, which we haven't seen since 1994. So we expect the Federal Reserve to be aggressive and not move in 25 basis point increments like it did in 2017 and 18, but more in terms of more aggressive moves like we saw in the 90s to really get ahead. They're kind of catching up right now to an interest rate policy where that adapts to this unforeseen rise in inflation. And I think we're going to see more of that in the second half of the year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see another 2 more 50 basis point moves. I don't think the Fed's going to move in 75 basis point increments consistently here.
And after business, we turn focus to sports. Indian women's hockey team defeated US by 4-2 in the first match of the final doubleheader of the FIH Pro League 2021-22 in Netherlands last night. Indian women, Deep Grace Ekka scored the first goal in the 31st minute, while Navneet Kaur in the 32nd, Sonika in the 40th and Vandana Kataya struck the goal in the 50th minute. For USA, Daniela Grega struck the goal in 28th minute, while Natalie Conard found the net in the 45th minute. Navneet Kaur won Player of the Match trophy for her splendid performance. With 3 points from the match, India remained third in the FIH Pro League standings, amassing 27 points from 13 games. US, on the other hand, are at the bottom with 5 points. Argentina has already claimed the title, finishing with 42 points from 16 matches. India and the US are once again set to lock horns today in the second match of the tie.
Well, the father-son duo who set a world record in swimming was felicitated at the Press Club of India at New Delhi. Asian Masters gold medalist swimmer Sanjeev Tokas and his 16-year-old son Arjun Tokas set a new world record by swimming 20 kilometers across the Bonifacio Channel between Couriccia in France and Sardinia in Italy on June 6th this month. More in this report.
It takes years of practice and repetition of actions to achieve what one aims for, and possibly is the only way to win the world. India is leading at all fronts in all sectors, then how can sports stay behind? Indian swimmer Sanjeev Tokas and his son Arjun Tokas have proved the power of India at 20-kilometer long Beneficio channel from France to Italy. Asia Masters gold medalist Sanjeev Tokas and his son swimmer Arjun Tokas have created a new record in the world of swimming and is the first such world record. On 6 June 2022, both has successfully crossed the Beneficio channel from Corsica, France to Saladin, Italy in just 5 hours and 3 minutes. This was the first swimming father-son duo in the whole world to achieve such a world-renowned feat. Press Club of India honored both of them for their achievement in presence of senior journalist.
सबसे डेंजरस था वो जो मरीन लाइफ नीचे होती है समुद्र में. आप जब तैरते हो तो वो गॉगल्स लगे होते हैं तो आप सब कुछ देख पाते हो. तो इतनी सारी चीजें होती हैं नीचे, आपको ये नहीं पता होता कि कौन सी चीज आपको अटैक करेगी और कौन सी आपके साथ फ्रेंडली है, बिकॉज यू नेवर नो कौन सी पॉइजनस है. So it was challenging.
They both started swimming from Punta Serena beach at 8 am in chilled cold water till Reina Bianca beach at 1:30 pm. The Bonifacio Channel is located in the Mediterranean Sea between Italy and France and is known for its challenging weather and various obstacles. After establishing the world record with his father, swimmer Arjun Tokas says it is no less than a dream come true for him.
It was difficult, but we finally made it and really happy.
Sanjeev Tokas started swimming at the age of 10 and became the first Indian to win a gold medal at the Asia Pacific Masters in 2018 and many first goals for the country in the sport of swimming. At the same time, his son Arjun won the gold medal in Canada at the age of 13 and aims to win an Olympic gold for the country. Setting such a unique world record, the swimmer pair of father and son have made the nation proud and is a true example that India is becoming a powerful nation in sports. Varsha Kotwal's report, DD India.
Jai Hind, Jai Delhi.
All right, 20 kilometers at a stretch. Indeed, a splendid feat.
Well, very much there. But
Yes.
time for us now to slip into a short breather here. On the other side, news continues. Stay with DD India and Breakfast News.
The changing world of news. Headlines that you wake up to. News that shapes your day. Stories that matter to you. The latest and most accurate updates. A fresh start to a new day. The Breakfast News, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching Breakfast News this morning. Up next, we take a look at the events which made this day special in history. June is the birth anniversary of freedom fighter Ganesh Ghosh, who participated in the Chittagong Armory raid. On the same day in 1897, the Chapekar brothers of Pune shot the British Plague Commissioner W.C. Rand. Also, freedom fighters Mamraj and Ram Swaroop were also hanged on 22nd of June in 1938. In this edition of Saga of Freedom Struggle, we will pay tributes to the great heroes for their invaluable contribution to the nation.
of June 1900 is the birth anniversary of freedom fighter Ganesh Ghosh. His family hailed from Chittagong, now in Bangladesh. Ganesh Ghosh was an active member of the Chittagong Jugantar Party. He participated in the Chittagong Armory raid along with Surya Sen and other revolutionaries on 18th of April 1930. He was later arrested by the police, and after the trial, Ganesh Ghosh was deported to the cellular jail in Port Blair in 1932. He remained in the cellular jail for 14 years.
After his release from jail in 1946, he became a leader of the Communist Party. He was elected to the West Bengal Legislative Assembly in 1952, 1957 and 1962 as a Communist Party of India candidate from Bilateral. He also served as a member of the 4th Lok Sabha in 1967. Ganesh Ghosh continued to work for the nation till his last breath.
Also on 22nd of June 1897, the Chapekar brothers shot the British Plague Commissioner W.C. Rand. The brothers, namely Damodar Hari, Balakrishna Hari, Vasudeva Hari, belonged to Chinchwad in the city of Pune, India. When the bubonic plague hit India in 1896-97, the government had set up a special plague committee for managing the pandemic, whose commissioner was Walter Charles Rand.
Commissioner Rand took barbaric steps in the name of preventive measures. Troops were brought in to deal with the emergency. The measures employed included entry into private houses, stripping and examination of occupants, including women, by British officers in public, evacuations to hospitals and segregation camps. He even refused to pay heed to religious sentiment and enter temples and mosques. These measures were considered oppressive by the populace of Pune, and complaints were ignored by Rand. Thus, to put an end to the injustice borne by the people of Pune, the Chapekar brothers decided to take revenge.
On the occasion of the Diamond Jubilee of the coronation of Queen Victoria, on 22nd of June 1897, Rand and his military escort, Lieutenant Ayest, was shot by the Chapekar brothers. Ayest died on the spot, and Rand died of his wounds on 3rd of July. The Chapekar brothers and their 2 supporters were charged with the murders. All 3 brothers were found guilty and hanged. Salutes the brave sons of the soil.
We also remember freedom fighters Mamraj and Ram Swaroop, who belonged to district Bhiwani of Haryana. They joined the British Indian Army but resigned after some time and took part in Kisan activities from 1931 to 1935. They were involved in an attack on the British police. They were also involved in the murder of an informer of the Nawab.
They remained underground for some time, reached Ambala cantonment and stayed there with some soldiers from their villages. Finally, they were arrested in June 1937 and sent to Luharu Fort and charged with murder and dacoity. Mamraj and Ram Swaroop were hanged on 22nd of June 1938.
Well, time now to move on to some other stories there. Union Minister of Tourism G. Kishan Reddy along with the Minister of Railways Ashwini Vaishnav flagged off the Bharat Gaurav tourist train from Delhi Safdarjung railway station on Tuesday. For the first time, it will connect India and Nepal with a tourist train. The first trip of the train operating on the Ramayan circuit will cover the religious destination of Janakpur in Nepal for the first time, in addition to other popular destinations such as Ayodhya, Nandigram, Sitamori, Varanasi, Prayagraj, Chitrakoot, Hampi, Rameshwaram and Bhadrachalam. The divine journey will cover destination touching Lord Ram's life, and the unique concept of Bharat Gaurav trains will help in promoting tourism and provide an opportunity to people from all parts of the country to explore the architectural, cultural and historical marvels of the country. The coaches of the train have been refurbished and the amenities and services upgraded, and the exterior of the coaches have been designed as a kaleidoscope of Bharat Gaurav or Pride of India, highlighting various facets of India's such as monuments, dances, yoga and folk art.
The first Ramayan train has chugged off from Delhi Safdarjung railway station. This particular train will be connecting both India and Nepal, and will showcase, it will traverse through all over the country. The exterior of this train showcases the kaleidoscope of the different culture, the rich heritage that the country has. From Janakpur in Nepal, it will traverse through different parts of the country like Ayodhya, Varanasi and other places, and then it will finish its journey in Bhadrachalam in Telangana. This particular train is expected to showcase the rich cultural heritage of the country. With camera person Mahesh Bhattacharya for DD India, Delhi.
स्पिरिचुअल टूरिज्म का जिसमें मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एफेयर्स ने इस सर्किट के लिए 2 दिन से काम किया था, क्लियरेंसेस के लिए, अप्रूवल के लिए प्राप्त किया है। ये ट्रेन ऐसी है, ये ट्रेन एक स्पिरिचुअल कनेक्टिविटी विथ नेपाल एंड इंडिया। ये ट्रेन ऐसी है, साउथ से नॉर्थ को, नॉर्थ से साउथ को जोड़ने वाले स्पिरिचुअल कनेक्टिविटी का ट्रेन है। हमारी बहुत ही समृद्ध सांस्कृतिक धरोहर को हम कभी पीछे न छोड़ दें। ये एक ऐसा प्रयास है जिस प्रयास की सारी संकल्पना, परिकल्पना, निर्देश पूरा का पूरा प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने किया। देश के सांस्कृतिक जुड़ाव में जो हम हमेशा कहते हैं अनेकता में एकता, जो हम हमेशा कहते हैं कि चाहे जितनी विविधता हो, इतनी सारी विविधता को बांधने वाला एक ही सूत्र है, वो हमारे भारत की सांस्कृतिक धरोहर है।
Right, up next we get you the weather forecast.
Taking a look at the satellite image, and a fairly widespread rainfall, thunderstorm, lightning expected over Karnataka, Kerala, Malé, and along with Konkan and Goa regions, along with Lakshadweep. Also widespread rainfall expected over Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Marathwada, Andhra Pradesh, along with Telangana region. Also under the influence of the western disturbance at the middle tropospheric levels and strong southwesterly winds from the Arabian Sea to the northwest India at lower tropospheric levels. What it means is that we could see scattered to fairly widespread rainfall and with heavy thunderstorm lightning over Madhya Pradesh, Vidarbha, Chhattisgarh over the next 3 to 4 days. Also heavy rainfall over East Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh during the next 2 to 3 days.
Alright, that's it in this edition of Breakfast News this morning. We take your leave, but with a reminder that news and updates continue on DD India.
Well, we also give you with an image to brighten up your day. Today's event comes all the way from Japan Drone 2022 being organized in the Chiba city near Tokyo, where visitors can learn about the latest designs being exhibited by around 200 companies and organizations. Take a look, have a safe and wonderful day ahead.
Bye-bye.